Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Back in the States. Thank God. And let's continue our lecture on renewable sources of energy. Um, my computer screen is bugging a little loud, so I don't know if this is going to really work. We'll see if it does. So, another source of energy that we can use is something called geothermal energy. Geo meaning land, thermal meaning heat, and energy actually meaning energy. Um, so if we go into the ground and in certain locations around our planet, it's always going to get hotter the deeper we go. We never actually penetrate through the crust. Contrary to those movies that we see, that we've traveled to the core of the earth. No, that is not the case. Um, so um, but as we get closer to the mantle, it's gonna get warmer. Just the heat and pressure of the crust as we get deeper um, into the crust, it's gonna get warmer. So in certain areas, that heat, like hot spots, it doesn't necessarily have to be a hot spot, but if the ground is warmer at certain levels, we could take advantage of that. And what we could possibly do is warm water. Like we've been talking about, warming water is pretty much the primary way of turning a turbine and then creating electricity. Um, but even, let's think of your house. Generating hot water is a thing. It's a major thing in your house. Imagine your house without any hot water. Well, how does that work? You may have different technologies, but you may have something called a hot water heater, which is basically a large container, and this container is going to burn a fuel. Typically, it's going to burn natural gas. Most of your houses, some of your houses may still have oil, but primarily your houses are going to have natural gas, and it's going to boil this water, which is in this container, and keep it warm. And on demand, when you turn on the hot water in your house, it's going to pump into that area. Um, so you constantly are your hot water heater is constantly refilling that reservoir and warming it up. And so let's say five people take a hot shower, that reservoir is basically empty, and now it's refilling and trying to warm up. But imagine like if you could use that hot water directly from the ground, and so you don't have to burn that fuel. You're using that fuel, I mean that heat energy from the ground that is warming that water. And so there are some types of systems made up that way. But typically, what we're talking about when we're talking about um, geothermal energy is using that hot water. We'll throw cold water down into the ground through a series of pipes. It'll absorb all that heat energy. Now it's creating steam, and now we could use that to turn a turbine and create electricity through a generator. All right. So this is cool because there is no CO2 being emitted. You're basically using trapped energy from the earth. Sometimes this will release something called hydrogen sulfide, and it'll smell around these regions. All right. So in the earth, I like to think of it as earth farts. You may smell in these regions, and it's not a big, I mean, you could trap the gas and then not see it. But I just have to give you the pros and cons of these things. So that's what I'm throwing it out there. Okay. Try to remember this. I think I saw a question in regards to if there are any cons in regards to geothermal, because there's really no cons, but there could be a con of a release of hydrogen sulfide. All right. Okay. Let's continue. All right. I think I All right. So another thing that we talk about is biomass and biofuels. I know I spent a long time talking about that. I don't want to talk a little bit more about it. I want to talk about things so many times that you know it and you have a good idea of understanding it. So biofuels, biodiesel, what do they mean? Biomass. Basically, they're all going to be fuels from living things. All right. Uh, and that would be well, I'm sorry, biomass is going to be a fuel from a living thing. And then a biofuel is going to be a type of fuel that has come from a living thing, a current living thing. So, biomass, an example will be And in all biofuels are biomass, if that makes any sense. But not all biofuels are bio. Well, I guess they are. I guess you can use these interchangeably because wood is technically biomass and it is a biofuel. So let's say we could use these words interjectively. We could use them together. Um, Sorry, I had to pause it for a second. So we're talking about biofuels and biomass being pretty much the same thing. We understand what wood is. Cow dung is basically cow poop. Peat is uh, basically decomposed vegetative matter that has been compressed, the precursor to charcoal. All these things can be burned. All these things will produce carbon, carbon oxides, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. Um, they also sequester carbon too. So using a biofuel is going to be what we call carbon neutral. All right, because the amount of carbon they absorb is the amount of carbon that they're releasing. Okay. Some other fuels, particularly, are going to be called ethanol and biodiesel. Now, ethanol is like an alcohol. It is an alcohol, all ending. Um, with ethanol is typically made from a sugary substance or carbohydrate, like corn, sugar cane. Corn is pretty much you could make it out of soybean. You can make it out of anything that has plant sugar in it. Um, and it's made from the decomposition of microbes during anaerobic respiration. So that means basically no oxygen. They're going to convert this into an alcohol, and this alcohol is flammable and it can be used in certain engines. That's exciting. Biodiesel is different. Biodiesel is going to be made from used oils. And they're going to be so I got fascinated with oils and like a cooking oil. A cooking oil can be made into biodiesel. Wow, that's crazy. Old used cooking oil from McDonald's can be used to make fuel for a car. Now, I don't know if any of you have a job at McDonald's, Wendy's, Popeyes, Chick-fil-A. All those fryers, we throw away that oil. That oil can be used to make a biodiesel. Now that's crazy. And that's crazy. And actually, that's a bazillion-dollar idea. I thought about this a while ago. I shout out. I thought about masks a long time ago, and I was saying that we should all have masks and we should have little oxygen pockets in the back. That's still a thing. You could probably launch that idea. But let's think about this idea of someone or providing a company to pick up used oils from all the different restaurants in a given region and then converting that into biodiesel. I think that'll be a lucrative job opportunity. Someone should look into it and do it. You won't. You won't. Anyway, I was looking at how do we get oils? How do we get oil like our cooking oil? And another thing that we thought of is, we've always said that we got oil um, from whales, but how does that even happen? So I looked into it, and I'm going to share it with you. But let's look at this. Biodiesel is made from used fats and oils by a process called transesterification. And what that involves is if we get this oil, we could do a couple of chemical reactions and it's going to turn into this biodiesel fuel. Then an engine can use this biodiesel fuel. Okay, so first off, we got to get this oil, all right? So we get the oil, and let me show you how we get this oil from various things. So, let's say we got, or old school, how they used to get oil, whale oil, is they would pretty much skin the whale. There's gonna be a big layer of blubber. You could also do this to pigs. You could do this to any animal. You could do this to any animal. Any animal is gonna have fat, but there are certain animals that have more fat than others. And so whale oil was a thing back in the day. Lard is a thing now. I don't know if you know what lard is, but lard is actually made from pig fat. And so you would take this fat from the animal and then you would slowly boil it. When you boil just the fat, just basically the fat, the 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 fat, the oil is going to now become liquid and then basically start to float to the top. then you can filter that substance, and now you've basically got your fat, your oil from it. You could use that oil. All different animals are going to have different types of oils that have certain types of characteristics, like the temperatures, what they, you know, turn in, boil, and so on and so forth, freezing rates, um, boiling rates, things like that. And certain oils are better for other things. How do you get vegetable oils? All right. Now you could get vegetable oil from any different type of vegetables. You can get olive oil, sunflower oil, sesame oil, all different types of things. Well, how does that even happen? Right. And the algae also. That's why I'm trying to go with this, because you can get oil from algae. Pretty much anything you can get oil from that is living. Certain things are going to have more oil, more fats than others. Um, Avocado oil, coconut oil. Well, they use something. It's typically you're going to blend up whatever vegetable you're going to use, and then you're going to squeeze it through, and then it's going to liquefy, and now you're going to have the oil go to the top and the liquid basically on the bottom, and then you're going to filter out all the other stuff, the husks, the leftover, the overburden, and you could skim out the oil that's on top, and now you have oil. It's a pretty simple process. This is called a cold press. It's a machine. This guy looks like he's doing sunflower oil, and you put the sunflower in, and then there's just like a spinner, and it's going to squeeze those seeds, and then that oil is going to fall in here on the bottom, and then that leftover cake material comes out over here. So here's your oil in that aspect. Okay. Now we could use this oil, and now we can create biodiesel as well, from using this oil using a process called transesterification. All right. Pretty interesting stuff. All right. There is some concerns for biofuel, like we talked about before. The concern is, what if we start using crops to grow fuel instead of feeding people? And so let's look at this image over here. Takes 8 bushels of corn, okay, for 21 gallons of fuel. That's probably like a fill up for a smaller car. All right. Or 8 bushels of corn could actually feed a person for a year. So, food or fuel is the question there. All right. And if we start using crops for fuel, we're going to run out of space. That might be an issue. And that's why there's a big push for this algae technology and getting biofuels from algae, because 8 bushels of corn is a lot. All right. So we want to use something that's more efficient at providing us with oil. Right. Once again, the pro is that there is no net increase of carbon dioxide. All right. Let's take a turn and talk about some different type of cars. All right. And Sukhmeet, shout outs to Sukhmeet. You have a great car. He brought in his Tesla last year, and we went outside. I believe we were going to plan to go outside, and then the pandemic happened. Or I don't know. Maybe I guess we can't do it now either. But Tesla is a pretty cool car. So I want you to understand that there's about 4 different types of vehicles out there right now, and you're going to need to know a little bit about the technologies involved in them. The old school car that most of us have, not Sukhmeet, not Miss Puri. Shout out to Miss Puri. Miss Puri drives a Tesla as well, is going to be what we call ICV, or an internal combustion vehicle. It means it has an internal engine and it explodes. It's a conventional vehicle. It burns gasoline. So that's typically the ones that we're talking about that are mainly on the road. Then we have BEVs, which are going to be battery electric vehicles. Shout outs to Sukmi, shout outs to Miss Puri. These are the battery electric vehicles, the Teslas. Okay. And these are not going to produce harmful emissions during their use. All right, they're not going to. All right, there are some concerns regarding BEVs, because how long are the batteries going to last? If it lasts any, like my car, like my cell phone, I'm going to be upset. But I believe the company Tesla has been doing great things in regards to having a warranty for the batteries, and the batteries are not that expensive if you have to replace them. So I think I don't know, I don't drive a Tesla, but when I spoke to Miss Puri about my concern, she was like, blah, 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 blah. I think they could switch it in, like, you have 5 years and then they could do a swap out. And like, if you get brand new batteries, like, that's like getting a brand new car. So I definitely think that it is the future, these electric vehicles, especially in Woodbridge Township. We have power charger stations at the Woodbridge Mall and Menlo Park Mall. It is a beautiful situation. We also have something called a hybrid vehicle. Hybrid vehicles different. So battery electric vehicles only use a battery. Hybrid vehicles, they're going to be using a combination of both gasoline and batteries. So um, that's why they're called a hybrid. Something that you may not know about hybrid vehicles is that hybrid vehicles do better in stop and go situations. So typical cars, you have highway miles per gallon, and then you have city miles per gallon. What's the difference? In highway, you're not stopping and starting, stopping and starting, stopping and starting. So on the highway, typically with internal combustion vehicles, you're going to use a lot less gas than in the city, because you have to use all the power to cause the momentum to start the car and stop the car, start the car and stop the car. Hybrid vehicles are the opposite. They do better with miles per gallon when you start and stop, because there is like every time they hit the brakes, the batteries get charged. And so hybrid vehicles are great in city situations. So if you live in New York City, hybrid vehicle is the way to go, or a battery electric vehicle is probably the way to go. All right. Then we have what we call hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. And this has been a technology that seems so cool, but I don't know. I think it's far fetched out right now. It's hard to reach. Reason being is hydrogen fuel. Um, it's a gas. Where can we get this? Like, where can we, the pro is like Miss Puri and I asked her to show me how the car gets charged. We went to the mall. She charged it. We had to wait a couple minutes. I think we had to wait like 10, 15. I don't recall. But with a hydrogen, the pro of having like gasoline is that you could go to the gas station to fill up your car and you leave. That's quick. That's the way, you know, that's how we've always done it. Hydrogen fuel is cool because you wouldn't have to wait either. You would just go to the hydrogen fuel station and pump your car up and then leave. The issue is that hydrogen fuel is extremely flammable. So is the liquid, so is gasoline. But a compressed gas is even more flammable. And if you get in a car accident, you could get into a big explosion. So there are some cons in regards to hydrogen fuel cells. Um, but the only emissions would be water in a hydrogen fuel cell. And so let's look at this really quick. All right. The hydrogen gas would come in. They have what's called a hydrogen fuel cell, which is kind of like their engine, if you will. And this hydrogen gets this H2, and then it goes through a specific membrane. And I believe the membrane back in the day was made out of platinum. It's not made out of platinum anymore. It's too expensive. But then look what comes out: H2O and oxygen. So you're just pretty much putting in hydrogen gas, and then you're just releasing water and oxygen. So it's really, really cool when we think about this. But we would have to redesign the infrastructure. Our new gas stations would have to pop up being hydrogen gas. And like, if you were a owner of a gas station and no one had a hydrogen fuel car, would you really be like, well, let me start making gas stations? So I guess the first gas stations that would have to be made, if we were going to go this way, would have to be government owned. Um, that would be the push, because no private person is going to open up a gas station and have like one customer. They wouldn't be able to survive. So you got to think about the infrastructure. How would this technology? The technology is there, but are we really going to instill it? It's hard to instill the type of technology. All right. Um, so let's continue with these last two slides. I know I've been talking for quite some time. Catalytic converters are huge. Please take some time right now and understand it. We're still on this uh, lecture regarding cars. Okay. And the catalytic converter is a thing that sits underneath your car that's connected to your exhaust. All right. And so here exhaust means like the gases that are produced from your engine, the things that come out of your tailpipe. Hopefully hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. So the harmful gases, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, all the nitrogen oxides, all right, they're going to come in. They're going to go through this filter. There's a chemical process that comes on that goes on, and then H2O and CO2 vapor goes out the exhaust. So basically, catalytic converters are going to make the exhaust clean before they leave the car. All right. So specifically, I need you to know that they remove hydrocarbons, nitrogen oxides, and carbon monoxide. You're going to need to know that nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide. Back in the day, we used to go to the I don't even know why should I even tell you this. Well, you go to the DMV and they have to do an inspection on your car, and they would put a sensor on the back of your exhaust. And if it reads a certain level of gases, that means your catalytic converter is bad. Now everything's electronic. The computer tells you when your catalytic converter is bad, and then basically you get it redone. But that's how they used to do it back in the day. All right. Um, People used to steal these catalytic converters because there was also platinum inside of them, and platinum is a very expensive metal. And you know, now I believe they're redesigning them, so they can be quite expensive, especially for like Mercedes and BMWs. All right, that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's lecture, and I'll see you soon.